the moment people always say how excited they are when they're about to interview someone. And so it's so cliche, but I'm so damn excited about this interview. And I'm going to tell you
Me
why,
too.
and I'm going to tell you who this incredible man is. Again, this is so long overdue.
Isn't it?
It's so overdue. I know we talked about doing this a while ago, but okay, I want to read who you are. I want to actually read it, and then we're going to get into the juice. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad this is working. Okay, let me introduce this man to you and then set this up. I know my camera's really blurry, but it's okay. We're doing this. Okay, Ken Blackman, this man right over here. He is a connection, I love this, connection and intimacy expert who's worked with couples from San Francisco to Paris to Sydney. He's trained thousands of students in his workshops on sex and relationships. His work has garnered mentions everywhere, from Cosmopolitan, Business Insider, Playboy, to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour series. With nearly 2 decades of experience, that's a long time, y'all. Ken's powerful, unapologetic break from conventional relationship advice is shifting the world conversation around love and committed coupledom. Ken, hello, officially.
Hi. I am every bit as excited about this call as you are.
That's so good.
We've been in each other's orbit for so long.
I know. This is the moment, and you know what? This had to be the moment. It had to be, and thank you, Krona, for halting my global tour and for sitting my ass in this chair, because it brought me this moment with you and all of our amazing guests. Why am I so excited about this? Not cliche excited, but super juiced excited. One, because this topic, how to love a too much woman, has been something that's been percolating for at least the 2 years since the Too Much Woman started. Just being so clear about who I am and how I stand in my too muchness, and we're going to talk about that and unpack it, getting clarity around my desire, my pleasure, and why I need to prioritize that in order to show up first for myself and then in relationship. And then number 2, because right now, and I want to put a frame around our conversation, right now, we are talking about how to love a too much woman quarantine edition. And so we can kind of zoom in on some of the qualities that would be really important for those of us who are quarantined with a partner, which really magnifies our situation, or without our partner. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay, here to start, let's start with the frame through the lens of the too much woman. And I think it's really important to start in this space, because I know with you, we can talk about in so many directions, because you have such a wealth of knowledge. But if we look through the frame of loving a too much woman, and whether that is a man or a woman loving, I think it begins with clarity around what it is to be a too much woman. And so for me, the definition has really shape-shifted. Even though I wrote the speech, now I have a deeper understanding. It'll probably evolve. And I don't claim to state it for all women, but for me, it's 2 components. One is it's a woman who at some point in her life has been told, whether by word or by deed, that who she is in her too muchness, too sensitive, too emotional, too provocative, too dramatic, too intelligent, too sexual, whatever, is wrong. And so she's dimmed in some way. It's been dangerous, she's been punished, she's been shunned. And then part 2 of that is she comes into a place, into a knowing, into awareness, that's celebrating her too muchness and standing in the glory of that is actually the best thing for her in all ways, for her work, to parent, to be in relationship, in all ways. And so this is who the too much woman is. And so enter Ken Blackman. So I want to begin like macro, Ken, because I know that I believe we both agree, I won't make any assumptions, but I believe that we both agree that the dynamic of and we're going to talk about the male-female relationship. So only because that's what I identify, I know, and correct me, but the male-female relationship or dynamic is dependent on this really archaic structure where the man in his masculine energy is, the provider and holds the space and does all the things. Even though we've evolved so far, we think we have, and the woman is the space holder for the emotional management of the relationship. Is that even fair?
You are speaking my language. This is exactly how you said it is almost identical to how I say it. This is exactly
Okay.
right. So he's the provider and the protector, right?
Okay.
And she's the nurturing homemaker. This is the 1950s. And
Right.
we
This is
don't,
so old.
yeah, but we don't think that this applies to us at all, but you can see it, the shadow of it in so many relationships. And so, you know, it would be wrong to say his job is money and her job is sex. That's how we used to understand it. How we understand it now is her job is managing the emotional well-being of everyone in the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that point of view, there's a couple problems. Like if she's making good money, that somehow is a problem for him because he's being deprived of some role that he thinks he needs in order to actually be valuable to her.
Right, right.
So there ends up being like the more all these good qualities a man has, right? Like if the better looking he is, the more wealthy he is, the more, confident he is. It's just an upward curve. The more of those things he has, the more attractive. And then for women, there's this kind of maximum beyond which it's not. So there's a subset of men who don't like women who have a lot to offer and are a lot.
Too much woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a whole subset of men, and it's a pretty sizable subset, who say, no, we love that woman. We think she's amazing. But this group, unfortunately, we haven't been taught how to meet her. We've only been taught how to meet a woman when she's here. If she's beyond this point, we don't know what the hell to do. Like, it's not that we don't like them. And so that's what I've been trying to, the nut that I've been cracking for the last, 10 years, right?
Thank you, first of all, for cracking that nut.
Yeah.
That probably came out wrong, but thank you, because I want to just pin what you said, because from, owning and embracing and celebrating my too muchness is a turnoff for a lot of people, men and women, right? Because it's scary. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel threatened by a woman who looks like who, she doesn't need a man. She's got her shit together. And on the other end, there's something very tantalizing about someone who holds power, or maybe it's not even power. I don't even want to use that word, but holds an energy for herself. So what does she need? Like, what piece do I fit? So can you just speak to that for a second?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I have a lot of opinions about this.
Good. But I want to hear them.
But anything I say that doesn't sound right to you, like, you trump, because you're a first person, you have the experience. So please correct me if I say anything that doesn't resonate with you. That leaves me free to say what I think is true. Then you can jump in and say, actually, from a first person experience. Okay.
I love that.
Okay. So my understanding is, this is what I've seen, out in the world, you're kind of faced with a couple of different options, none of which are good. And then I'll talk about what the better solution is. Okay.
Okay.
But the options are, you either attract a super powerful alpha male, take charge, masculine guy who isn't threatened by you. Right. And it can feel good to a woman, because if she's really kicking it in the world, she likes having a place where she can relax and just, relinquish control and be kind of handled, right?
Can we just pin this? This is my fucking life. Sorry to my French. This is so, I call it mountain to mountain. Yeah. A strong woman loves to have a soft place where she doesn't have to be that. Okay, right. Go on. This is so good.
But if he's attached to that dynamic, then he eventually is going to put a ceiling on you above which you can't rise. Because if you surpass him in any way, then the dynamic that he's come to rely on in order to feel like this is what his worth is in the relationship gets threatened. Yeah. So all of a sudden, this same guy who was so amazing, all of a sudden, in weird ways, he's being belittling. He's being competitive. He's like making you smaller just so he can maintain that role.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
It sounds familiar, and I know we'll get to it later, so I just want to mention it here so one of us remembers, but I'm confident that that has an impact on so many dynamics of the relationship, including in the bedroom. So let's just pin that there. Okay.
Totally.
We'll circle back. Okay.
Okay, so option 2, the opposite of that, where you find a guy who's loving, supportive, accommodating. He also isn't threatened by you because he's not competing with you. And that feels amazing because all of a sudden you're out in the world, you're alone, and all of a sudden you have this support system where you come home and you feel supported, you feel approved of, you feel loved, and all this stuff. But what happens in that situation often is he's so accommodating that you feel like it's like there's nobody there. There are times I've heard women say, this is going to sound weird, but I wish he would get into a fight with me. I wish he would take a stand. I wish he had some of those qualities. Like it would even feel better for him to be combating with me and like just to be take space, right? I've gotten my fill of the accommodating, and now I need these other nutrients that the other guy has, right? So
I'm just giving you a visual amen. Yeah.
So all of this has to do with like this idea of the protector provider. Now here's the alternative that I see working.
Okay. Oh yes. Let's go.
This is necessarily going to be oversimplified, right? I'm going to make it sound a lot simpler than it actually is, but I've brought it down to 3 things. Okay. First of all, if he has self-esteem and confidence, right? If he has confidence, and the way I use the word confidence is he has the confidence to trust him enough, to trust himself enough to take the lead and take it somewhere when he feels that's right. But confidence also means like the capacity to apologize. Like it takes confidence to be able to say, oh, wow, I'm sorry, and not have your ego get involved. Like to be able to say, wow, I was wrong. That to me is confidence, right? You take a stand, but you're not attached to the ego of being the leader. If you have this kind of confidence, you can afford to take the lead and give her an amazing experience, like to take it in a direction. You also have the confidence to let her be everything that she is and not be threatened by it, or like there's times when she's going to take the lead, right? So this confidence, okay?
I need to like repeat it back so I understand.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, and by the way, everything you're saying is bang on from my personal experience.
Great.
Wanting to have, it's like, it seems like it's conflicting, wanting to have like the strong masculine, because as a strong woman, we do want that place to rest. And also the extreme of that being so, I don't know what the word is, adaptive, wishy-washy, like almost too mushy, like right. Too that there is no rub. It's like a bumper car. It needs something to kind of push up against.
Yeah.
But when I heard you say that about the apology, it's also, and I'm sure that you're simplifying, but it's also being willing to ask her. Like, I'm not making the assumption that I know as this alpha male what you need. What do you need from me? Like, does this feel good? Yeah, so totally. There's so much in that piece, like from the ego perspective, to be asking.
I want to give you an example of exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I've been doing this for 2 decades. For my first decade or so, my focus was on sex. Like I was a sex coach, and I was focused on what happens in the bedroom, right? So because it was my day job to know this stuff, and because I was helping people in my own personal sex life, the biggest risk I can run is for me to think that I know the answer when I don't. So whatever I think I know, there are times when I feel like I know what I'm doing and good things are happening.
Yeah.
But when I'm lost, when I don't know, like when I can't read, I can't tell, I need to not have any ego involved in that. I better be willing to say, I don't know how to touch you right now. Will you give me some guidance? Like I need to not have any ego attached on that, because it's the only way we're going to get into the territory that we both want to get into.
Can I just volunteer that I have never, I'm 44 years old, I have never had a man ask.
Wow. Ever. It is such a foundational skill, right?
I'd like to think, I'm trying to speak on behalf of the thousands of women I know will watch this. I'd like to think that, and I know we're talking about the bedroom right now, and this really goes way broader, but maybe this is a microcosm of an example, but I'd like to think that I'm trying to give lots of clues, like verbal, nonverbal. Okay, so that's a really important example that you've given us.
Okay, and so that same example is going to make more sense as we talk about these other things.
Okay, let's go. I cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm just so excited because you're nailing it, and it's so validating. Okay. Yeah.
So then the second piece, oddly enough, or interestingly enough, is intuition. So we men, and I'm generalizing, so you can throw this out if it doesn't apply to you. It's just a general thing that I've seen.
Okay.
Doesn't apply everywhere. But we men tend to want the rule book. We tend to want the formula, the algorithm, like the instruction manual.
Right.
And we tend to be in our analytical brain when we need to be in our feeling brain.
Right.
Because feelings, intuition, they're all tied up. And that is a very powerful, like it's a broadband input. It's like a broadband communication that we as men have been taught not to pay attention to.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do is, like, a lot of times a guy will ask me a question and it sounds like he's trying to make a formula out of it. Like, if it worked the last time, it'll work this time. Or if it worked for this other guy, it'll work this time. Or when she has this particular expression, it means this, right? His intellectual brain is getting involved.
Right. If she coughs 2 times and winks, then it means this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
None of that is ever going to work. But there is a part of his brain that's kind of quietly whispering in his ear about what's really going on that he needs to tap into. Okay. So he needs to become intuitive, and if his intuition is off, he needs to get that feedback so that his intuition can start to get honed and polished and be on.
Mm. So is the feedback the onus on the woman to give the feedback? Is that what you mean?
Well, he needs to stop analyzing. His role is to stop trying to analyze it or understand it. There are things he's going to be able to know that he can't understand. And the second is not to be afraid to make mistakes. And the third is to be willing to get feedback and receive it in the spirit it's intended, and not have his ego be hit. Because if every time she tells him something that isn't flattering, if every time she does that, his ego crashes, she is disincentivized from telling him the truth. So he needs to be able to listen and receive her truth so that he can learn.
Yeah, and can we just, I think this is an important place to interject that for a woman, and again, generalizing, but in my travels, this has been affirmed over and over again, is we are programmed to focus on his pleasure, his comfort, as opposed to ours. So we stuff everything. We swallow our orgasms, we swallow our words, we swallow our desires, we swallow everything in the name of his comfort and his ego and what makes him feel better. And so part of this tango, this dance is the part of the man being willing and open to receive the feedback, and the part of the woman being willing to be uncomfortable, because we do it because we want to be loved and accepted, and we don't want to hurt his feelings, but to be comfortable enough to ask for what we want, which presupposes that we know what it is, which is what my work is all based on. So there's a lot here.
Yeah, culture has told you in a way that it has not told me that your job is to make me feel good.
Yes.
And you are going against so much cultural conditioning in order to tell me something that you know isn't going to land, isn't flattering, and isn't going to stroke my ego. But the thing I want to say to all your listeners is that is absolutely necessary for the health of the relationship. You have to. He has to be willing to receive it and actually take it and be a student of you. And you have to be willing to set aside this role of making him feel good so that you can tell him what you want, what you need, you know.
Yeah. You know, I'm fascinated how the universe has laid out my work for me and brought me to this conversation, because for 20 years, I've been 25 years, I've been a corporate speaker, and my focus is conscious communication. And I didn't understand, I thought this was a different conversation, but I didn't understand how that was preparing me, because when you're talking about a woman, and this is the platform I'm in now, where I'm saying, not only as a too much woman do I want you to stand in it, own it, celebrate it, but now communicate it. Once you have the clarity of what you really do want, most women don't even know what they want or what brings them pleasure. But once you have that clarity, daring to ask for it. But what you're where we meet, you and I think, at least in this conversation, is how do I ask for it in a way that it will be received and clear. I'm sure that, okay, so you're a relationship and sex intimacy coach.
Yeah.
How much of your work is the translation of the language between the two? Is that where the issue is? Like,
a lot of it is translation, but I want to give you a couple like really simple clues.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to the guy, often where I'm having the most success is by saying, you know, I'll take the sex example, but it applies to the relationship as a whole.
Okay.
But when it comes to, because in the sex is where the most emotional charge is around this topic, right?
Okay.
So where I'm having the most success with the guy is by saying, the sex you're going for, the sex you're trying to have, is mediocre. Even if you got all the stuff that you think you want, it's not nearly as good as the sex you could be having. So every time you subtly encourage her to put on a show because you enjoy it, you're missing out on what it feels like when she's actually getting off that well. And
right. And when you say put on a show, you mean faking it. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the difference between what it's like to be with a woman who's like in that situation, it's not the greatest, but she's kind of putting something on so that, you know, she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. There's something she could ask him to do, but, you know, it's just not feeling as good. If I could take that guy and you do a magic wand, and all of a sudden she's actually feeling for real what she's pretending to feel.
Yeah.
His experience, he will know the difference. You know, it's like the difference between instant coffee and the coffee you get at the best coffee shop in the world. And so
Nice.
if I can get him to see, and if I can get him to start to pay attention and start to do things that she actually enjoys, and he can feel what it feels like to be with someone who's actually getting off that much, he's all of a sudden something switches and he's obsessed with her pleasure. Not for him, but he's like, I will do anything. Tell me what to do. I just want to know whatever will get you back into that state, because it's so pleasurable for me to be in connection with a woman who's in a state of orgasm.
Okay,
so
I want everyone to, I have to cut you off. I want everyone to hear this. This is I'm so glad we're having a conversation from a man to a woman, because what I'm hearing you say, I'm going to repeat it, I'm going to paraphrase, that because what holds us back, many of us, myself, what holds me back from asking for what I want is the story that it's not about me, it's about him, that it's selfish. But what you're saying is that it's actually going to heighten the experience for both of us.
Yeah.
Not only we're talking in the context of sex, but really we're talking about the context of the connection and the relationship.
Everything we're saying applies to the whole relationship. Yeah. Yeah. You are, by telling him what you actually enjoy and what you want him to do, you are doing him a favor. He may not know it, and it may be a struggle for him to confront this, but you can know that you are pointing him in this isn't either or. This is not either or. You are trying to point the relationship, and you're trying to point him in a direction that will be better for both of you.
Yes.
And even if he doesn't get that yet, you can know it, and you can stand by. This is the standard I want our sex to be. This is the standard I want our relationship to be, because it's going to be better for you.
Yes. Yes. And can I also just, I have to say this, because this is what I this is from my hymn book, is that a satisfied woman, and it's sexual or in any context, a happy, fulfilled, turned on, an excited, passionate, satisfied woman, what's the first thing she wants to do? She wants to give it. She wants to share it. And whether that's with her kids, with her work, that's what I call turned on. Like, she is lit. And so I know when I am doing the thing that's best for me, everyone benefits. And so that's where we can just kibosh this whole guilt and shame bullshit. Okay, I have a question for you. I know we have to go to number 3, but I do want to ask you this, because we keep talking about sex, and I know that there's a lot of people in my community, because I hear this, because now that I'm sharing more about my sexual revolution, I'm going to call it a revolution for me, an awareness that I can be a 44-year-old mother who is sexual. Like, that was like, whoo. How important, are we going too off base here, but how important is the sex to a relationship? Because I know that there are a lot of women in my community in their late 50s, I would say 60s, who are like, I don't even really care. Like, we're good. We're just hanging out. We're watching Netflix. Like, how important is that to the relationship? Is it? If
in your life you've gotten all the sex that you want and you're full, then like, your interest can wane, and it's like, I'm good. Like, but if it was bad or inadequate or not enough, and you just gave up and you said, you know what, I'm just not going to care about it, then there may be room for you to re-explore and get back in there and see. Because so many women came to the conclusion that they're never going to feel, it's never going to feel that good. Like, they never got into a situation where it felt any better than this. Yeah. And so
they gave up.
So it's not vital or important unless you and the person you're interacting with decide that it's important. Like, it's as important as you decide. But but the main reason I'm referring to sex is because as a microcosm of the bigger thing, that's actually how I learned. Like, I learned how men and women relate in the bedroom over her pleasure. Then, for my second decade, I focused on all the ways in which that same dynamic plays out in the relationship as a whole.
Yeah, I love it.
How are they relating over her pleasure?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let me thank you for going there with me. Let me try to rein us back in. So you were giving a. I'm telling you, this could be a really long. So let's go back to number 3. So we had talked about a couple of things you wanted.
Yeah, we talked about confidence, and we talked about the importance of switching from the analytical brain to the intuitive brain.
Yes. And now?
So the third one is your level of connection with this person. Like, this is interesting. So I was a software engineer at Apple. I was a software engineer in Silicon Valley. I was successful. I was mostly happy, but I was terrible with women in ways that I didn't understand. I was a walking, like, encyclopedia of all the ways that you can be bad with women. This is a realization I just had yesterday, because I've been talking with my coach, who's helping me kind of write a TED Talk about this topic. And I got to this place where I realized it wasn't that I needed to learn how to behave. I needed to learn how to feel another human being. And then when that channel opened up and I could feel what she was feeling, my ability to sense and feel and experience another human being, when that channel opened up, all of a sudden I could feel in this way that was excruciating. Every time I said something that was insulting and I hadn't realized it was insulting, I realized how repugnant my behavior was. Now, women all this time, like, they're so accustomed to guys being assholes or just being like kind of insulting, that they're not going to tell me every single time I say something that is misogynistic or, any of that. They're tired of it. They just have learned to put up with it. But all of a sudden I would say something that seemed reasonable to me, and I would feel that little twinge of, like, of repulsion. And there was this period of time during which it was excruciating for me because I hadn't changed the behavior yet.
Right.
But eventually this was what I needed to behave differently. This is what I needed to become good in bed. If I can feel what she's feeling, I change what I'm doing before she even has to tell me. So
okay, let's peel this onion, because is this about empathy, sensitivity? Have men just been trained to turn that part of their brain off because they couldn't cry as kids? Like, is this really what it's come to, that they really just lack the empathic sensitivity to know that what they're doing is really?
Honey, we've been trained that our own emotions are a useless inconvenience rather than a vital source of guidance. So I want to give this example.
Yes.
So a few years ago, remember Aziz Ansari, the whole Me Too thing. Do you recall? Okay.
Yes.
So his behavior was disgusting. Like it was a complicated situation, because we can look at him and think of all the ways in which he's ignoring her very obvious signals. We can also look at her and all the ways in which she's sending signals, but she's actually not taking a stand and leaving the room or like saying no, right? So it's complicated. I will admit that it's complicated. But here's the thing I want you to realize.
Okay.
The degree to which he had to non-confront what this other human being is feeling, right? Like if he can't feel what she's feeling, like for me, I would be like, if she doesn't want to have sex with me, like I can feel that. It's been a long time since I wanted to have sex with someone who doesn't want to have sex with me. Like, you feel what another person feels. So he has to non-confront this major aspect of what's going on. Then she's a no. Then she finally is kind of acquiescent and gives in. So now she has to non-confront what she's experiencing and feeling and just go numb. So now you have two numb human beings having sex. Okay, so that is what I mean when I talk about mediocre sex, right? Like the degree to which a man who's trying to get a woman to have sex, when some of us know that women love sex, and so
can we just talk about that? I think that's an important piece too, because let's dismantle that story that a man wants sex and a woman just wants love and affection, or hugs after, cuddles after. She doesn't really. Can we just nip that in the bud? Like, let's just put a stake in the ground right now for that.
Right.
Because I think both are true. Like, I think men, maybe they don't even know it. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn for men, but my experience has been that they desire connection. I mean, why else would they? I mean, you tell me. You tell me. And women, I will tell you for sure, women do want sex. And also, let's just zoom out. I just want to keep zooming out, because it's not just about the sex. We want connection. We want to feel seen and loved and desired. And I just want to say one more thing. I'm going to hand it to you.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this before and I forgot. When you said, men really want the instruction manual, or they want like the 1, 2, 3, I half jokingly put up a post. I reposted it this morning for this very conversation, about the 5 ways to love a too much woman. And it was a little bit tongue in cheek, a little bit, kind of, and not, because it almost feels as though I have to say, look, I am a vibrant, thriving, pulsing, energetic being, and I want all the things. And if you don't know it, here's how you give them to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There are guys who will love that you gave them the list. They're like, oh my God, thank you for giving me some guidance. And there are guys who won't be that. And that is a litmus test, right? It's a litmus test.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Oh, there's so much that I want to say all at the same time. And
I know, me too.
Linear time requires me to lay it out, I wish I could just say all the things at the same time. Okay, so I want to answer your earlier question.
Okay.
We men are taught. So fundamentally, what we hunger for is connection.
All of us.
All of us. And we men are taught that the best flavor of connection, the only way we're going to get that hunger met, is through a certain flavor of sex. So our urgent drive to have sex is I mean, I don't want to discount hormones, but I do want to say that I had to learn. I thought all I need to do is learn what she wants and do my best to do that. I realized I was mistaken about what I wanted, and once I actually was getting that, it's like you think about a guy who, they call him a playboy, and he goes from woman to woman. Like he goes until he gets the sex, and then he goes to the next one. Right. Well, you'd think if the sex was actually what he wanted, that a woman that has sex with him would be the person he stays with. But maybe it's because that isn't actually giving him the nutrient he's hungry for. And this is a thing that I had to learn. I was trying to use sex to get to the connection. And so once I had both sex and connection, I realized, it's actually the connection that is the thing that I've been trying to get through sex.
I hope everyone hears this, Ken, because this is such an important conversation. Like,
yeah.
So many things I want to say. Okay, let me focus. So what I really want to give the people watching, and I'm hoping that the women share it with their men. Guys, we love you. We do love you. And I always feel I'm so cautious around the too much woman not being anti-men. For God's sakes, we love you. We need you.
But you want to be met.
How does, first, okay, two-pronged question. It's the same question, but from two perspectives. How, as a man, do we start to connect to that thing that, like, switch off the analytical brain and drop into the feeling so that we can connect with her? So that's number one. And from the flip side, how does a woman support a man in doing that? So give us some tangibles. What I want people to leave with something to do.
Perfect. This is perfect. So I'm going to talk about the woman first. So just to set the scene, there's two people. They definitely do want to connect. They can tell there's something there, and they both want to explore it. And we have this cultural background that tells her primary job is to make him feel good. And we know that she's going to have to leave that territory in order to get, it's like the barbed wire around the garden, right? Like you have to get through the uncomfortable to get there. So
even you saying that makes me feel tight. Just you saying that. Yeah. I just want to pin that out. Like,
it's visceral.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I'll give you a hint.
Yeah. Point
him towards what you want. So by what I mean is, if you've been unmet and you've been frustrated so long that when the little adjustment that you could give him comes up, it might come out as complaint, as you're doing it. Like everything that you say is at risk on his side of land. Like no matter what you say, what he's gonna hear is you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, right.
So complaint, criticism,
nagging.
because of this emotional dichotomy.
Yeah.
That it needs to be dismantled, but it's there. Yeah. But instead of criticizing, instead of complaining, instead of the communication being what he did wrong, make a request. Point him towards what you want. Say, would you do this? That is a better communication than telling him what he's not doing.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Okay. So I like it when you.
Yeah.
I remember when you. Is that
or you could say, I like that spot, but there's a spot over here that if you got on that spot, man, I would.
Yeah. I'm even thinking, I don't know how you feel about love languages, but I know that I love to hear like I've my whole life I've never heard the words. I just wasn't in relationship with people who had the words.
Yeah.
And I loved, and I blogged about this. I never heard outside of my family when I was a kid,
Yeah.
you're so beautiful, you're so sexy. Never heard it. So I didn't have this belief around that. I thought it was just so to so when I hear it or I don't, I want it. I ask for it. I'm like, I love it when you say it,
Yeah. Yeah.
write it, sing it, send me a song of someone
Yeah.
singing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's so that would be an example just outside of the bedroom. I just want to give some examples of how I want to feel connected. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that is exactly how you communicate it. And the second thing to keep in mind is you'll probably have to say it multiple times, and not to get frustrated with the simple fact that you will have to say it multiple times. Say it fresh every time as if it's the first time. If you say it 6 or 7 times and he's still not getting it, then there's a problem. But don't get frustrated after the 3rd time you've said it or the 4th time, or the fact that you said it, he did it for a couple seconds and then stopped.
Yeah.
Be prepared to say it 5 or 6 times before you start judging that this guy isn't getting it or doesn't care.
So at what point, where's the point where you kind of go, he's ignoring my needs, I'm asking for it, and he's just getting accustomed to, or he's, like where do we draw that line? I guess my question, my broader question is, because I know there's so many people who are in relationship, because these are the conversations we have in this group. There are people who are in relationship or have been in relationship where they have a need or a desire. It's not being met. They believe they're communicating it, suggesting it. Maybe they're not. Who's to say? And at what point do you say, I can't, like, you just don't care enough. You're not putting in enough effort. I mean, this is where we clearly call you, Ken, to coach us, but give us some parameter. I don't know. Is there?
It's tricky. It's tricky. And the tragic thing is that there are some guys who are not going to be willing. They just don't care enough. Or, and I'm going to say this about guys, but I can only say it because it was true about me.
Okay.
Which is that culture has spoiled us so much that what you're asking for feels like a lot when it's really tiny, but to us, because we're spoiled, it feels like a lot. And so there's a lot of times when I say to a guy, okay, we've talked about the territory you could be in. We've talked about that. To you, it's going to feel like you have to work 10 times harder. You have to put in 10 times more attention onto her than you think. If you're willing to do that, like, we have to get you out of this expectation that every time you get into bed, it's going to be amazing from your point of view, and you're going to climax, and that she's like, we have to dismantle all of that so that you can start to pay attention and start to actually get her into the territory where she's really, really, really like you, how it's going to feel when you're pleasuring her in ways that you've kind of been ignoring when you get into that territory. So the biggest thing you can do is have him see how much better it could be if he were doing these things, like why it's going to be better for him. If he's not willing, or he's so spoiled that he doesn't see it, there's not a lot you can do.
Okay, cool. I got it. I think intuitively we have a sense of that.
Yeah.
Talk to us now from the guy's perspective.
Yeah. So guys think the most attractive way to be is the master. And I have come to believe that the most attractive way to be is to be the student of her. And so there's this missing piece where, there are times when he knows, but he has to be willing to not know what he doesn't know in order to learn. So, he needs to be, the only way he's going to figure that out is if he's willing to receive feedback. And he needs to, this is what he needs to do. He needs to ask. He needs to not be crushed when she tells him something that isn't flattering. He needs to say, wow, my ego's really taking a beating here, and I'm really glad that you're telling me. Like, this is going to make our relationship better. Like, it has to be 51% that she senses. He's 51% glad, even if he's 49% like stinging, his ego is stinging, right? So there needs to be that feedback loop. And he needs to know that he can get into the territory where he knows her psyche better than she does. He knows, like, she comes home and there's the meal that she loves the most is there, or whatever it is. Like, he can get to know her so well that it does seem to her like he has ESP, but he needs actually to be a student in order to get there.
That's a huge turn on for, and again, not even just sexually, it's a huge turn on that a man would invest the energy to pay attention in that way. And it sounds, just as soon as I said that, I thought, that's so pathetic that that's all we're asking for. Like, just pay
Right?
attention. Like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to me. Hello. Oh gosh, Ken, there's so many things. Okay, I want to be mindful of our time. I really want to ask you about, I want to circle back to, as a too much woman, there's been a history of me feeling the repercussion or the backlash of showing up in fully expressed. And what I mean by that is feeling like I feel best when I feel turned on about life. And for me, that translates into dancing and being juicy and flirting, which is about me and my energy. I'm just using an I message.
Yeah.
But over my life, I have, and this is what my speech was about, I have been shunned, criticized, assaulted, abused, name it. And so I shut that down forever. And I packed it away, and it was perfect timing because I had kids. And so of course, as a mother, you don't need that anymore. Yeah. So when I came to the awareness that was really dulling me in all the ways of my life, and I decided to slowly step in, and it's been a process to slowly step in. There's a lot of underlying fear for me as a woman that I'm not safe, that I'll be objectified, that that men are just going to see me in that way. So can we just talk? This is such an important topic that I'm so excited. I want to have with you, because I know we're kind of taking a different turn, but it's been something that's come up so much in my groups as a woman who wants to stand fully in her glory. That's the language we use, like whatever that means. For some women, it's not the same as me, but we're afraid that because we have a narrative of men abusing that or objectifying that's how they'll always see us. So I guess my roundabout question is, how can we stand in our too muchness and communicate to men that there's this is one part of me, but it's not the whole of me. I don't know if I'm.
No, I'm with you every step of the way.
Okay.
You are a fucking threat to the status quo.
That makes me smile. Thank you.
Thank God. What it feels like when you're turned on and happy and in your flow and like really glowing, it feels good to be around you, and that is threatening to some people. And it's threatening to some people who think you're being inappropriate. It's threatening to some people who feel competitive with you and compare themselves and feel too small. And you're being disobedient by being as big as you are. And it's threatening to some people who think you need to be small in order you need to be broken enough for them to have something to offer you. The only advice that I can give you is the same advice that I would give to everyone who's showing up as a bright light, including myself, which is allow it to be that you repel the people that you repel and attract the people that you attract. Don't be neutral. Be a magnet that polarizes. right? In order to attract as strongly as you want to the people, the clients, the lovers, the friends, the supporters, the mentors that you want, in order to be that strong of a magnet, you will also be that repellent to the people who don't, who aren't your vibe. So be more you, be fully you, and let it shake out. And if people are messing with you, call me and I'll kick their ass.
I love you, Ken. I just I think more than anything, well, you've given us so much goodness, but I think more than anything is the affirmation from a male. I don't know why that's so validating, and I almost hate that I desire that so much, but I do. The truth is that I do. I think we all want to be seen. Like invisibility suffocates the soul.
Yeah.
And this conversation is so invigorating because it leaves me hopeful, and it helps me feel like there's a place where we as men and women in relationship can have more. Like we deserve more. We've settled. How many of us are freaking settling, and we deserve more.
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
I'm here.
Okay. Something just clicked off. I have a question to wrap us, because I could probably go on forever.
Okay.
And my question, Ken, is if the world went silent and a microphone dropped right in front of you, what would be in this moment? I'm sure there are many things, but what do you think right now is just important for you to share?
We are experiencing a crisis of disconnection. And connection heals in so many different ways. And we're starving for connection and we don't realize it. Some of us don't realize it. Like we've become so numb to it, or we're not aware that that's what we're hungry for. So connect. Learn how to connect. Learn how to connect if you don't know how. Get into your discomfort zone of being like uncomfortable intimacy with someone. Connect in whatever way you possibly can, because the world needs it and you need it.
That's beautiful. And I think how timely, because we are looking for creative ways right now when we can't physically connect to feel connected. And so I think it's a great little petri dish for us to play in, so that we can understand connection in a deeper, more meaningful way. So how can people find you? I know you're on my radar, that we will work in some capacity together, because I think you can help me so much. I'm not there yet, but how can people reach you and work with you?
Well, my new website is going up in a few days or a week. So I'm going to just send people to my website, but they have check it now, but then check it a week from now. It'll be very, very, very different. So it's simple. It's kenblackman.com.
kenblackman.com. And you're on social media as well? You're on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook, Ken Blackman Personal. Feel free to connect with me. I'd love to, answer any questions or start a conversation. Hopefully this sparks something.
Yeah. Do you primarily, let me just be clear, you primarily work with couples. Is that right?
It's shifting. My awning, my advertising is designed to attract couples, but I've worked with so many single people. I don't really focus on dating per se, but just the internal shifts that need to happen in order for you to have the connection that you're hungry for.
I love that. You are remarkable, and I'm so grateful to you for your time and your energy and saying yes, and your sharing, and your vulnerability and your willingness to be the voice that so many of us need to hear, men and women. So thank you, my friend. I so appreciate you. Check out Ken Blackman. We're going to check out his website. I will post this everywhere, wherever you are. Check out his work, because this is the stuff of life. This is the stuff of life. This is it right here. This is it right here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.